Emily,
Yes.
what's up?
How are you?
All right, how you doing?
I'm good.
Good. Thanks for coming by and agreeing to share your story.
Absolutely.
Definitely interested to hear it.
Good.
So let's start from the beginning. So where are you from originally?
Born and raised in Springfield, New Jersey. North Jersey girl. So,
And what was life like growing up in Springfield, New Jersey?
my family was big. I grew up in my grandmother's house with my grandfather, my grandmother, and my mother, all in the same house. My uncle was there too until he moved out. My great uncle was next door. So we were always together, like had Sunday dinners, pizza Fridays, and it was like that for a while until what I notice now was like normal chaos. My mom was, and God rest her soul, I still have trouble talking about her in this way because my mom was my best friend, so I don't like talking quote unquote bad about her. But I come to realize that this is the truth, my truth, her truth. So I'm starting to feel comfortable talking about it. My mom was addicted to painkillers and crack cocaine. And a lot of things that happened with her was just normal to me then. And then I grew up and started living the same lifestyle she was living. I'm like, wait, this isn't normal. Like going to Newark and being in the car while she's out copping and then coming back, and then she locks herself in the room while I'm playing. Like that wasn't normal, but it was my normal. But other than that, I had a pretty good childhood up until the age of 13. And that's when my mom and I moved out of my grandmother's house and we moved into our own place. So that's when things really started to get bad. She had left the cocaine alone and really started to use pills because she was sick. She had a lot of health problems. So, of course, prescriptions came into play. And long story short, I started getting myself into risky situations, dealing with people who were older than me and telling them that I was older than what I actually was. So I was very promiscuous back then. And my mom did the best that she could. She truly did. She did the best that she could with what she knew how to do. And I went to rehab, went to a few foster homes. DIFUS came and took me a few times, went to group homes. And the last time I was in a rehab when I was an adolescent, that's when she passed. So that was basically the end of my childhood.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that.
Thank you.
Yeah. And so you said things changed when you moved out on your own.
Yes.
And you said that you started getting more involved in the streets.
Basically, yup.
How did that start? What?
Okay, I might show my age now. We used to have these phone chat lines where we used to call up. It was like a dating service. So I would use the phone chat line, say I was 18. Mind you, I'm 13. But I looked like I was, older. I could pass for an 18-year-old. So I would meet guys off of that and go out with them, smoke, drink, whatever, come back home. And I would do this repeatedly. And I feel bad because I did a lot of this when my mom was under the influence because I didn't really know what being under the influence for her was, but I knew that when she passed out, I could do what I wanted to. I didn't really put two and two together, you know what I'm saying? So I did take advantage of that situation, and I still live with the regret of that. But I mean, I was in my own type of addiction at that point, so.
So you were still young. You were still a teenager.
Yeah.
And growing up and being exposed to, seeing what your mom did, maybe not completely understanding it at first, but as you got older,
Yep.
do you remember the first drug you tried? And
The first drug I tried technically was weed and alcohol. I didn't start smoking crack until I was 15, 16.
So what age were you when you tried weed and alcohol?
About 12, 13-ish. So about the time when me and my mom moved out.
And outside of your mom, how did you get introduced to crack and smoking it on your own?
There was a period of time when my grandfather had, it was like the rights of a grandparent to take the child into custody. Kinship. He had kinship over me. So he was an alcoholic. So I ran over him too, and I feel bad about that. But I did. I took advantage of that situation too. He had a friend who was a female. He was a Freemason, so he was around a lot of alcoholics who either considered themselves alcoholics, didn't, but they always went out drinking. So there was a lot of females that were attracted to him because he had the money. By that time, my grandmother had passed, so he had the house. He was by himself. He had whatever money he got from, her death and everything. So they flocked to him. So one of the ladies that flocked to him was an active crack user. And for some reason, I flocked to her. I guess it was because I couldn't see my mom like that because I was with my grandfather. Maybe that's why. I still don't really know why, but she was like, I guess like not a motherly figure, but like a woman figure for me. So I would go over her house and stuff like that, and I seen her doing it one time, and I wanted to try it. So I did. And when I tell you it was off to the races, I would do anything and everything for the next one. And then when she seen that basically she could pimp me out, kind of, sort of, like, because drug dealers sometimes, that especially they see a young, pretty girl who's not tore up by the streets, they want a piece of it. So basically she used me to get her stuff, and I was using me to get my stuff. And I stole so much money from my grandfather. Oh my God, I stole so much money from him. Back and forth on the bus, going back and forth. And it was really, now that I think about it, it's like really ridiculous what I put myself through and everybody. So I let myself be turned out from that first time. I'll never forget it.
Wow. And you were 15.
Yeah, I'd say roughly 15, 16, yeah.
What was going on outside of that? How were you in high school?
Oh, I dropped out in 9th grade. No, I dropped out in 10th. Sorry, 10th grade. I don't remember what made me drop out, but I know I just stopped going. I was done. I was too busy, especially going to different schools. I grew up in the suburbs, like really suburbs. Like there was only a handful of people that looked like me in my school. And I was an outcast. So I was basically too black for the white kids and too white for the black kids. Nobody really liked to hang out with me because, I didn't fit in anywhere. I had like a few friends and stuff like that, but I wasn't like the popular girls or the cheerleaders or anything like that. So my dream when I was younger was to go to predominantly urban school and be around people like me. I got my dream, and it wasn't the way I thought because I didn't fit in there either because I was too white for them, So I didn't fit in like I thought I would, but then I got introduced to the street lifestyle in a different way when I went to a school like that. So it was just like a lot of jumping around, trying to fit in different places, and then basically being like, you know what, I know where I fit in, and that was my addiction.
And this was in the city at the time, or you were in a suburb?
I was in the suburbs. When I dropped out of school, it was in the suburbs.
And then what happened after you dropped out? How did life change, or what was going on?
Honestly, I don't fully remember details. All I remember was I was in rehabs after rehabs after rehabs. I was in 1, 2, 3 different adolescent rehabs, 2 group homes, 2 foster homes, and the last thing I remember before I became an adult was being in the rehab when I found out my mom passed. Then they sent me to the psych ward, and I was in there for a while because I lost it. When I say I lost it, I was not talking to nobody. I wasn't eating, so they had no choice. They didn't know what to do with me. So after that, I don't remember where I went. I might have went back to grandfathers. But by the time I turned 18, when I turned 18, I saw myself out of DIFUS, and I was just for the streets. I didn't care. I was for the streets, so.
What was that first stop you made on the streets? Just to backtrack, because you were saying you were in and out of rehab.
Mm-hmm.
And so who was making you go to rehab?
DIFUS.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was always DIFUS. I never went voluntarily, so.
And what about any family that you had at this time?
I mean, they wanted me to get better. They didn't want me to be doing what I was doing. But at the end of the day, they had no say-so. DIFUS did. So, yeah, I put them through a lot, too. A lot.
So you signed out of DIFUS.
Mm-hmm.
What happens next?
So I went, from what I remember, I was living with, I had stopped smoking crack for a while. I don't remember why. Probably because, I don't know. But I was living with my, at the time, boyfriend and his mother and his sister and his stepfather. So we were all living in the same house. I was a real big weed head. We drank liquor, normal stuff. We smoked every day, maybe went to the liquor store once or twice. Then I found somebody in that neighborhood that smoked crack. I don't remember how I found them, but I found them. So then my crack addiction took off all over again. Then I found out I was pregnant, and I was still using. I was still running the streets, smoking, doing all types of stuff, acting like I wasn't even pregnant. Then I had my son. Oh my God, I remember when I don't think my water broke, but I went into labor and I was going to try to go get some money to get some more crack. And even though I was in labor, I was still trying to go. That didn't stop me. I was 19 at the time. So that just goes to show you how much of a hold that my addiction had on me. And then I had my son. DIFUS took him. I went to rehab, got him back after 8 months. I was in a halfway house in Patterson, and this is when I was first introduced to Patterson. I was in a rehab with him. Sandy had hit, and I couldn't take it because I couldn't talk to my family. We were on restrictions from talking to family and all that stuff. So I called DIFUS, and I told them to come and get my son because I wanted to go get high. So I packed his stuff up. I packed my stuff up. I waited for them to come. I put him in the car, put his stuff in the car, went back upstairs, got my stuff, and left. And that's when I found Patterson, and my addiction really took over.
Wow. So you gave up your son willingly because you knew so were you clean after you had your son, or what was going on then?
I don't remember what the time period was from when I had him to when I got into the program, but I was clean. I gave him up when he was 11 months. So I think 8 months. Yeah, I was clean for 8 months. And I just wasn't ready.
Did you have any family around at this time?
Which is why I was so upset I couldn't talk to them, because I was going through all these emotions. I didn't want to talk to anybody but my family. And I couldn't do that. So I didn't have the coping skills to deal with a situation where I'm told no. So.
How long was your son in DIFUS when you first gave him up?
He was in DIFUS from 11 months until my uncle adopted him when he was 3 years old. He had 2 different foster homes. I was trying to get myself together. I really was. But it just, when I tell you my addiction had a chokehold on me, had a chokehold. And my uncle would make it his business to go and see him every visitation. And sometimes I would make it there, but I wouldn't get out because I ran out of crack. So I just didn't, and I didn't want to be around him like that when I'm like, fiending. So I wouldn't go. So they didn't know where I was. I just stopped all communication after a while because I was like, I can't do this.
What was life like? Was it exhausting? It sounds like there was a lot going. So I'm assuming at the height of your addiction, it was crack.
Yes, I didn't start dope until I was 24, and I didn't start fentanyl until I was 29.
Oh wow. So how did that progression take place?
I don't know what made me try dope. Probably somebody had it and I wanted to try it because I didn't like being up so much. Because once you smoke enough crack, you're like up. And it doesn't feel, to me, it didn't feel good. So I wanted something to come down. And I found dope. And I'm like, oh snap. So now I can go up and come down as I want. This is perfect. Like I'm in heaven. I can control my high. This is awesome. So that's what I started doing. Up, down, but my main drug of choice was crack. That lifestyle brought me, oh my gosh. The things that I put myself through in my addiction is, I look back at it now and I'm like, how could you do that to yourself? And allow that to happen. Like I was one of those people. I always tell my clients, because I'm a recovery specialist and I'm a counselor in training. So I have clients that I'm trying to help, and I always tell them, like, those fiends that you see on the corner nodding out and looking all types of way. I was one of them. I was the person sleeping in the bandos. I was the person doing God knows what in the alleyway. 3:00 in the morning. I was the person that was trying to, sell my ass on the corner, 5:00 in the morning, trying to catch somebody going to work. I was that person. Like, I was a fiend. And I have no problem saying that because I was. I really was. It's ridiculous. But that's where it took me.
How long would you say that your overall addiction was? How many years you think?
My addiction started, my drug addiction really started like 15, 16. My addictive lifestyle started 12, 13. When I started being promiscuous and dealing with those type of people. So I'd say it lasted about 3 years. No, not 3 years. I'm sorry. 3, and then that, about 14 years, give or take. Yeah.
What changed?
My son saved my life, my youngest, my 3-year-old. I was in a very unhealthy relationship with my son's father. I was clean before I got pregnant with my youngest. I had graduated the program. I had graduated, everything that I had to do. I had moved to a halfway house in Newark, which was a bad idea, because that was part of my stomping grounds. And I got a job. I was getting up 5:00 in the morning, catching a bus, doing what I got to do. Then I met my son's father. So then, after a few months being in the halfway house, I was doing amazing. I got to see my oldest son. My family was proud of me. But when I met him, I realized now I allowed myself to be preyed upon because I was in a vulnerable state. I was new in recovery, like new in like actual recovery. Because I had been in recovery before, but like actually trying to get myself together, I was new to that. So then I moved out of the halfway house, left with like basically against advice. They wanted me to stay. I didn't have to leave, but I decided to. And I moved in with my youngest son's father and his other baby mom. Yes. So I was in that type of situation, right? So, which I was cool with, it was, I was living my best life. I was out there, basically doing what I wanted to do. Of course, things happened and it didn't work out. I had to leave. I was basically homeless. So then I went to go stay at my son's father's sister's house with him. I didn't like it because I was basically homeless. So I don't know how I found out where I was. I was so close to where my mom used to go cop. But that's where I ended up my last run, is copping from the same people my mom used to cop. And I quit my job right before they were about to make me company. I quit. I found out I was pregnant, and that on top of the fact that I was homeless, I couldn't handle it. I was like, you know what, fuck this. And I ran to what I knew. So I started getting high. I was out there until I was 6 months pregnant on the street, doing the same things I was doing with my first son. Hot mess. And then I found fentanyl. So that was a wrap. That was a whole different monster. It was no more dope. There was just fentanyl. I didn't do fentanyl on purpose. I thought it was dope. And then when I had actual dope, it didn't get me off of E. So I'm like, oh shit, they got me. Because I had already heard about it. I'm like, I ain't never gonna do that. You won't catch me doing that. And then they got me. So that's how I got onto fentanyl. And after a while, I got so sick and tired. See, I knew how to use the system. If I got tired enough, I can sign myself into a psych ward to have my little rest and be all right. If I got tired enough, I can sign myself into a detox and then leave when I want to. So I knew how to basically keep myself alive so I can have enough, recharge my battery enough to go back out and do, what I want to do on the streets. So this last time I signed myself in, it was 3 weeks before my youngest was born. And I was done. I was completely done. I'm like, I can't do this. It's just too much. And it was getting closer and closer to the time that my son was going to be born. So I already knew what time it was. So when they admitted me, I explained to them my situation. I said, I need you to call DIFAS and tell them I need help. So I already knew what time it was. They were going to take my son, because once you have one DIFAS case, 9 times out of 10, you have a red flag on your chart. And then you tell them you're an addict, they definitely come in. So I wanted to not beat them at their own game, but beat them to the punch. I wanted to be the first one to be like, me, I need help. I met some beautiful people in there. I had a recovery specialist. Her name was Susan, and she helped me save my life. There were times when I wanted to leave. I remember I left this one time because I wanted to smoke a cigarette. I signed myself out. And I went outside and smoked a cigarette. She followed me. She was like, what are you doing? I said, but I just want a cigarette. She's like, okay, smoke your cigarette and then come back upstairs. Those people at the hospital, even the nurse would take me outside. And they don't usually do this, but she took me outside because I was fiending. I really wanted a cigarette because I had nothing else. You know what I'm saying? I couldn't get out of bed. I couldn't go nowhere. I needed a cigarette. So they would sometimes take me for walks along the side of the hospital so I could smoke a cigarette. And they ain't supposed to do that, but they're like, we don't want you going anywhere. We want you here. Because I guess they saw in me that I really wanted this. And my addiction was trying to give me every reason to give up. I didn't really want a cigarette. I just wanted to go back to the streets. That's not what it was. But that's how my addiction presented it to me. So I took a hold of that. I'm like, yeah, I'm out. They were like, no, you're not. So my son was born 2 months early, 2 pounds, 7 ounces. And he was an emergency C-section. And 2 days after he was born, I went to rehab because I had already set that up before he was even born. I had already set that up. And 39 days later, he came home to me. So, I was at the rehab for 6 months. That's when Corona hit. So, but it was okay because I got my baby. But it was really rough in there because a lot of the women in there had DIFAS cases and they couldn't get their kids because of COVID. Even if there was a court order they couldn't get their kids. So I'm sitting here freaking out. I'm like, oh my God, what's going to happen? This and that. And then finally I got to go home and go to the hospital and pick him up. And I couldn't see him every day like the other women could, because he was in a whole different county, a whole different city than where I was in rehab. So I got to see him once a week for 2 hours. All the other girls got to see their babies every night, but I couldn't. And it sucked, because I had a DIFUS case, but I didn't have a DIFUS case, because it was like I called them. So they couldn't really help me. They helped me, but they couldn't transport me back and forth and stuff like that. So I had to depend on the rehab, and it was really hard. On top of my youngest son's father taking me back and forth to court saying that I kidnapped my son, and from the hospital, mind you, from the hospital. He's a whole state child, and I kidnapped him, so I got court papers for that. He was trying to take my son from me before I even got him. I've been through a lot with this man, but yeah. So then I graduated there, and I went to the same halfway house I had my oldest son in. When Sandy hit, I went there, and some of the same staff were still there. So that was a whole different thing in itself. I got more court papers. It was like a mess. It was a battle. It seemed like it was a battle from all these different sides, because I had my addiction in one ear kind of wanting me to come back outside and play. Then I had the father of my child basically telling me I ain't shit and I ain't never gonna be shit. And somewhere in between that, I had my support system, and I just held on to that. And I ended up graduating there. And then I moved to South Jersey, and I've been the president of Oxford House for about 1.5 years, but I've been there for 2 years, almost 2.5 years. And I love my life. I love my life. I still get threats from my son's father. It's like a mess. Every now and again, I'll get, a little letter in the mail saying I got to come to court, and then he doesn't show up, and it's like, a whole waste of time. He's defamed my character a lot of times because of my past, so I had to come there and show them this is who you're talking about, and that's not who I am anymore. So I'm a full-time single mom, and I love it because I don't have to worry about anybody else influencing my child. I know that if something happens with my child, it's my doing. You know what I'm saying? I don't have to worry about what he's telling him, or if he's telling him things about me and trying to, do all that other stuff that some parents do, because we can't co-parent. It just doesn't happen. And I'm okay with it because I have such a big support system now. I would not give this up for the world. Do I still have thoughts about using? Sometimes. I'm an addict. Sometimes. But I just leave them at that. They're thoughts. I don't partake in NA meetings and stuff like that. But how I keep my memory green is my job. I have clients that I help. I have people who I'm around every day. I see myself in them. And my biggest thing is that I want to help other people like people help me to get where I'm at. So.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's really inspiring.
I love it.
And so what's been one of the biggest changes from how you look at life, from when you were addicted to now being sober?
I'm a freaking boss. I am such a boss. In 2 years, I got my GED, certified in recovery specialty. I'm waiting to go to school for my CADC. I bought my own car with my own money. I pay my own insurance. I pay my own bills. I'm not homeless. I take care of my child, and I have a bank account. Like, I'm a boss. I'm a boss. And I love it. Do I have hard times? Absolutely. I'm human. Things still affect me. I'm an overthinker. I'm a worrywart. I worry about everything, especially when it comes to my child. And I'm I have anxiety. I'm starting to get control of that. I don't have the best taste in men, but it's okay. I'm working on that. I'm working on my confidence and I'm working on knowing that I can achieve anything. Like what I said to you before about not seeing myself buying a house. I still can't see myself doing that yet. But I also couldn't see myself buying my own car and driving off the lot with it was mine. Like my name, what? Like I never thought I would have got on a plane to Puerto Rico. And I paid for my own ticket? Oh, you can't tell me nothing.
That's what's up. That's what's up. So what are you most excited about for the future?
Seeing who my son is going to grow up to be, seeing who I raise. I'm so excited to see who he turns out to be and what morals and values I've instilled in him. Because I'm a first-time mom. Even though I'm not a first-time mom, I'm a first-time mom. This is the first time I'm actually being active in my child's life fully. Like, it's just me and Sean. That's it. So I worry a lot about mistakes that I may have made and didn't know I made. And I don't want him to turn out like the old me. I want him to turn out like the new me. And I'm excited and I'm definitely nervous to see who he turns out to be. And I'm worried about how I would handle it if he doesn't turn out all right, you know? Because at the end of the day, we can raise our children to the best of our ability, but at the end of the day, it's their decision. Because how many addicts do you know that come from great homes? They were raised right. They had the beautiful house, the brothers, the sisters. They didn't want for nothing. And then they're heroin addicts. So that's what scares me. But I'm excited to get through these obstacles and still remain clean.
Your son is still pretty young, right?
Yes, he's 3.
How is it? Are you going to have these conversations about the person that you used to be once he gets to an age where he can, have more understanding?
Yes, absolutely. Because I think that will instill strength in him, hope, courage, and consistency. So, yeah, I'm definitely going to let him know. As to when to tell him, I don't know. But I'm guessing God will reveal it when it's time.
True. And now that, you got so much going for you, now that you got so much that you're looking forward to, I know you say you work with clients, but what would you tell somebody who's either in that situation, or maybe it's somebody that they know in that situation, of addiction? And do you have any words that you could share with them? Or
So for somebody who is in that state, I always used to tell myself, even when I was in my addiction, I'm going to get it one day. Don't give up. I know it's such a cliche, but don't give up. Always try to get up out this lifestyle because it's not getting any better. They got new stuff coming out all types of ways and putting it in everything. People dying from smoking weed. Like, what? How is that possible? So just know somebody out there loves you, and for somebody who is dealing with someone who is in addiction, just because you care and you love somebody doesn't mean that you should stop loving and caring about yourself. You have to make sure that you're okay so you can make sure that other person's okay. You have to love them from a distance, because when you start loving somebody and it turns to enabling them, that's an issue. That line gets blurred a lot of times. tough love is real, but the first thing that comes with tough love is love.
How would they know that they're enabling them?
Whew. Well, supporting their bullshit, basically. You know they're lying to you. They're not going to get something to eat, but you're going to give them money anyway. You're enabling them. Go buy them something to eat. They want to pay for a room for the night. They need some money. Go pay for the room. Cut it off like that.
It might be tough.
Oh yeah,
Family relationships
absolutely.
and relationships are
Absolutely.
yeah.
And that's why I'm so happy that there's support groups out there for people who are in that situation, because a lot of, like, my best friend's mom, she went through it with my best friend, and she had to go to a support group and learn how to deal with her without enabling her. And it saved not only her daughter's life, it saved her life. Because you're listening to people and talking to people who were in that same situation and got out of it. So that's definitely something that's worth trying.
Well, thank you so much. I want to ask you, do you have, is there anything that you would like to leave us with? Any advice, any encouragement, you call it?
One thing that was a major part of my story, my oldest son, didn't know I was his mom. I would come around him, he would say, "Hi, Emily, Emily this, Emily that." Broke my heart, but it wasn't time, because my family didn't know that I was serious about getting my life together. And I get it, I get it. I'll never forget the day that he asked me, am I his mom? And I said, yeah. I was given the okay to say yeah. So now he knows I'm his mom, and my family's talking about possibly putting me on the paperwork in the event something happens to them. He would come with me. And that's big for me. Like, what? Like, you trust me now? Like, oh my God. So it gets greater later. It really does. And recovery, I gotta say this. Recovery comes with many pathways. MAT is recovery. Because a lot of people out there who are on MAT, I used to be on MAT. And for those of you who don't know what MAT is, it's medically assisted treatment. Suboxone, Sublocade, methadone. I'm not sure if naltrexone is considered that, but those are the three main ones. And that is considered recovery. It saves lives. And just because you're on it doesn't mean you're any less of a person just because you chose to get on that to help you get out of the streets and out of your addiction. That is one thing I really want to say, because a lot of people are deterred because they're on those medications, that they aren't worthy. That's not true. I don't look at it like that. Full abstinence is a pathway to recovery, and partial abstinence is a pathway to recovery. Some people can drink, some people can smoke weed, but they choose not. A heroin user chooses not to go back to heroin. Drinks, smokes, that's their thing, but they're not back out in the street using dope. That is a form of recovery. My job in life is to meet people where they're at, like people met me where I was at. So that's it.
That's interesting. That opens up a whole other set of questions about recovery. If you don't mind, if I ask you a little bit about that too. So then these paths to recovery, you're saying that there's multiple paths.
Oh yes.
And partial can be considered a path as opposed to you can't do anything at all?
That's just my opinion.
Okay.
Does
Does that make you nervous?
No.
For the person who's going through that?
What do you mean nervous? Like
it could be kind of a trigger. You know how they always say, like, when you were younger, weed as a gateway drug. And
Oh
I guess
yeah.
now it's kind of maybe changing because it's all like so, legal or
Yes,
semi-legal
yes.
places. But so does that make you nervous for that person who's in recovery, but who's maybe still they're doing something different, but just not what they were?
It depends on where it's taken their life. Is their life becoming unmanageable? Are they resorting back to the same behaviors and attitudes and actions that they used to when they were using the other drug? These are all the things that a person who is in that lifestyle has to look at. Because MAT can also be considered marijuana. That was a new one for me. I was like, what? Like, huh? That's a medical marijuana card. What is that? So it depends on the person and where they allow their life to be taken. If, complete abstinence is what I grew up on, going to NA meetings and stuff like that. But not everybody is on that pathway, which is, God, I know we're going to hear a lot of shit about this, but I've learned to accept people where they're at. Recovery is, I might butcher this definition, but recovery is recovering from anything that did you harm. That's how I learned it. I probably butchered that definition, but that's basically the gist of it.
Right, I get what you're saying, and changing your lifestyle. And sometimes you're saying some people they can manage that, or some, maybe even to some degree might need it, like the Suboxones or the methadone,
Yeah.
because, I guess going cold turkey isn't
Right.
as easy as it looks, like, or as easy as people may make it seem, right?
Yeah.
To those who don't understand.
Yeah. So it's all individualized. What one person does, another person can't do. Some people can smoke crack on the weekends. I can't, because I smoke crack on the weekends. I'm smoking crack every week and every weekend. You know what I'm saying? Some people can do one bag of dope. I can't do one bag of dope. I do a whole bundle. Some people can, smoke weed only on Fridays. I don't know if I could do that. But, it's individualized.
That's interesting. And that's kind of really how we have to really treat everybody, really, anyway, right?
Mm-hmm.
As the individuals that they are.
Yeah. Now, if somebody is doing methadone or drinking and it's starting to cause them harm and they don't see it, us as their support system, it's our job to point it out. You know what I'm saying? So at least we could let them know, like, yo, bro, what are you doing? You nodding out. Why are you taking so much methadone? Or you showing up drunk to work. Why are you drinking before work? So that's why it's always good to have a support system. An actual support system, not somebody that says, oh yeah, I'm your friend. No, somebody that's actually going to tell you stuff that you don't know if you want to hear or not, but they're going to tell you anyway. I have those people. I hate it sometimes.
Yeah, we all hate the truth, but we always respected it.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, right?
Yeah.
You hate to hear it, but you respect it. You always respect the truth.
And sometimes you like, man, yeah, all right. And then down the line, when shit hits the fan, you're like, damn, they told me.
So true. Well, Emily, thank you so much for coming by and taking time to share your story. I really appreciate it.
I appreciate you having me. This was awesome. Thank you.